Okay, today is going to be a brief instructional video for a direct mount tank adapter kit for the Ionit 9071 ultrasonic sensor. This is a tank level sensor. This is a kind of a universal mount if you've got a tank that does not have an accessible bung adapter on top of the tank already. This is the mounting kit that you're probably going to need to use. Okay, so first let's review what's in the mounting kit and then we'll go from there. There's an instruction sheet, which we'll take a look at in a minute. There's a mounting flange itself. This is what gets mounted to the tank along with some gaskets underneath it to make sure it doesn't leak any fumes or fuel oil. We have got a gasket. This is identical to the gasket that comes with the ultrasonic sensor, but this one is intended for being on the bottom of this plate rather than on the top of it. We'll get into that in a little bit as well. We also have in here two rubber washers or gaskets that go between the flange mounting bolts, which are here, and the tank. So you have gaskets, these three gaskets that go underneath this whole kit, like that. And then we have a couple of number 6 bolts with toggle nuts on them that will slip down into holes. There are some different options. We've had some feedback from some of our clients that don't feel as though these are strong enough for the application. I assure you that they are, but if you over tighten them, you will break them. And then you'll have to replace them, and this piece is going to fall off and end up in the tank. So other options that you might have, you could alternatively decide to drill these holes into the tank and possibly tap them into the tank, or alternatively you could drill holes and you could reach in, if you've got good dexterity with your fingers, and put nuts on backing nuts on them and screw bolts in from the top. That's up to you. And the kit also includes mounting screws for the sensor, the ultrasonic sensor, to go on top of here, which will hold it down in position. All right, so let's get started. Let's take a quick look at the instructions. I think this provides a little bit of a visual of how these units get installed. This kit is actually the 7370 kit, which was originally designed for the older version of the Visitank sensor. The 377 sensor. This one is for the Ionit 9071, and the only difference between the kit, there are a couple of differences. One is that this plate, the hole has been enlarged in this plate. It used to be 13/16 in diameter, and now it's 31 millimeter, which also is 1.25 inches, so 1.25 inches diameter. This hole is enlarged in order to accommodate the bigger ultrasonic cone that's on the bottom of the 9071 sensor. All right, so that's the only difference in the plate. And then the kit, instead of including a gasket that goes underneath between the plate and the tank that's sized for 13/16, the older product, it's identical to the gasket that's provided with the ultrasonic sensor, the 9071, and it's used on the bottom. And so I'll get into how that's applied in just a minute. All right, so if we look at the instructions, take a close look here, you'll see what's included. This isn't completely accurate because, again, this is for the old kit, but most of the same materials, they're simply substitutions, okay? So, for instance, the rocket gasket is still a rocket gasket, but instead of being what you see here, it's another one of these. This shows 2 gaskets here. Apparently with the old product they wanted you to use 2 gaskets. In this product we only want you to use 1 between the rocket and the mounting plate. Okay, actually I guess that's not a, yeah, well, I don't know what that is. Anyway, there's a second gasket. You're only going to use 1 on top between the rocket and the plate. So sorry if there's any confusion there. And then the other difference here is the drills that you need. Instead of a 7/16, which is to get these toggle bolts through, you'll still need the 7/16, but instead of a 13/16, you're going to want a 1.25 inch drill, and that's because of the larger feed on the ultrasonic rocket, the 9071 product. Okay, so first you want to find a location on the tank that doesn't have any internal obstructions. So you want to be far enough away from the edge of the tank that the cone of the rocket, the pattern that this projects, which is kind of cone-shaped down from the bottom, is able to go down to the surface of the liquid without having any obstructions. So you don't want it to see the side of the tank. You want it to only see the liquid that's in the tank. You also want to stay away from other sensors. So if you have a gauge, maybe a float arm gauge that's next to it, you want to make sure that the rocket's not looking at the float arm gauge, because that's going to interfere and give false reflections back to the rocket, and obstruct the readings, and you're not going to have accurate readings. So you want to make sure you have a clear view from the base of the sensor down to the liquid level in the tank at any level. So whether it's at the top or at the bottom, you want to have a clear view, and obviously at the bottom the cone's going to be bigger. All right. So the first thing is finding a location on your tank. The next thing you want to do after you find the location is you want to make the first hole, the 1.25 inch hole. So you drill the 1.25 inch hole to match the one on the rocket, and that's the position your rocket's going to be in. You want to make sure that hole's someplace on the tank where the plate can be mounted level. You don't want this to be tilted in any way. You want this to be level, level with the horizon. So you can use a float gauge on this if you need to. Okay, so once you have that first hole drilled, the 1.25 inch hole, then you want to set the plate down on top of the tank, run your finger around the inside so the plate is exactly aligned with the hole that you just drilled, and then you want to mark the two holes for the mounting screws that are going to hold this plate in place. So you punch through there, or you can actually run the drill through if you want. You just want to make sure this stays aligned while you do it. So you mark and drill these holes for the mounting screws, whether they be, number 8s that you decide to tap in the tank, or whether you decide to use a 7/16 and push the toggle bolts through the hole. Doesn't really matter. Okay. So now that you have all the holes drilled, the next step is to actually mount the plate on the tank. So as I mentioned before, we've got these gaskets. We want to make sure these gaskets are in place when you put this plate on, so there's no seepage of fuel if there's an overfill in the tank or something like that. So what I suggest is take your mounting hardware, in this case, these bolts with the toggles, take the toggle nuts off to start out with, and push those toggle nuts, the bolts, down through the plate from the top, and then flip it over and put your mounting washers on those two bolts. Okay, these are a little bit sticky, and that adhesive will help them stick to the plate or to the tank. Probably to the plate's better. It's almost always going to be cleaner. And then, now that you have those in place, you put your toggle nuts back on, and they're ready essentially to go into the 7/16 holes that you drilled in the top of the tank. Okay, there's one. Here's our second one. There we go. Just get this lined up so that bolt goes through. All right, good. So now we have a plate that's ready to go through, or seemingly ready. There's one more thing you need to do. So I would take the sensor and use this as an alignment tool for when you're putting this plate in. So the first thing you're going to want to do is take that gasket off the base, the original gasket that comes with the rocket, and set it aside for a moment. And then you're going to take the gasket that is shipped with this kit, with this plate. You're going to set this over the bottom. And this doesn't have to be oriented in any particular position here. It just has to be over the hole so it lines up. Now if you take the sensor, you put the sensor through the plate, that will hold that gasket in place while you're doing the mounting on the tank. Okay? So now you've got a kit essentially that's ready to go onto the tank. You've got the 3 holes that you already drilled in the tank, one for this bolt, one for this bolt, and then one for the feed horn that's going down. And you see they all have gaskets on the bottom of them. Okay? So you drop this down, you push that toggle bolt through, you push that toggle bolt through, you push this plate all the way down to the surface of the tank, you tighten up your toggle screws. These only have to be hand tightened. You don't have to have a lot of pressure on them because you do have gaskets. All right, so once that's done, now you're going to take the rocket off. Now that gasket is going to be locked in place because you just screwed this whole thing down. And you're not going to want to forget this part. You're going to want to take the second gasket that goes with the rocket, put that on and align it with your screw holes so you can see through. And then you can put this back on pretty much in any orientation you want. Doesn't matter which one of these holes that you select. But you select these holes and you take your mounting screws. You can either use the ones that came with the rocket or the ones that come with this kit. Either are fine. I think the ones that come with the rocket might be stainless, so maybe that's a better choice. You tighten down this screw, you put in the next one, you tighten down that screw, and you should be good to go. So anyway, a couple of last thoughts. When you leave a tank, whenever you leave any oil tank that you're installing a rocket on, you want to make sure that you didn't leave any open holes, okay? Because when that tank gets full, the way they determine that the tank is full is often the pressure in the tank, the back pressure that is venting through a whistle of some sort. So you want to make sure there are no open holes left. So when you install this plate, make sure you haven't left any open holes, any open bungs, anything like that. At that point, the rocket is ready to be activated, if it isn't already pre-activated, which most of ours now are. There's a little mark over here on the side of the rocket for holding the magnet in order to do the activation. You hold the magnet in place for 20 seconds while the unit is reporting, and it should come into active mode. And you have other instructions to scan this barcode in order to see that on your phone. You can see the signal strength and all these other things. Anyway, I hope this video helps, and call us if you have any questions. Thanks for doing business with Ionit. Bye-bye.